If you want to improve your game this year, you must improve your club face control. The best players in the world are the best because they are amazing at controlling their club face. They can manipulate it to their advantage. They can de-loft it. They can do all of these things in order to help them hit longer, straighter, more accurate golf shots with better control. Now, you can learn this same thing. It's not just a skill reserved for a gifted few. You can learn this. So the major key concept that you must understand is that club face control is dictated by our hands and our wrists. That is the main thing that controls it. Now, yes, forearms do play a role, but the biggest thing is controlling your hands and your wrists. So let's start nice and simple. Let's start with the grip. It is the only contact we have with the club, and we must get it in a good position. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to determine, right, do you need a stronger grip, a weaker grip, or a neutral grip? Frankly, all of them work fantastically as long as it pairs up with your wrist flexibility. So if you were to hold your lead wrist up in front of you, here's how you can tell what you need. Try and go into flexion as much as possible, and then extension where you bend your knuckles back on each other. Now you can see for me, I have good range of motion right here. So straight away for me, that tells me, okay, I can kind of go both ways. So I have to be careful that I don't get too extreme with my grip. Now let's say you do this and you cannot bow your wrist at all. Maybe you only get it to about there. A lot of people are in this situation, but you can extend it loads. If you're in that situation, then you need to favor a stronger grip because you cannot go into flexion, you cannot close that club face down. So therefore we need to position your hand stronger with more cupped address in order to then reduce the amount of flexion you'd have to go into. What if you have zero extension in that wrist, but then you can bow it loads? Well, in that situation, you need to favor a weaker grip. Colin Morikawa is a fantastic example of this. Very weak grip. John Rahm as well, very weak grip, but he's able to bow it loads at the top to control that club face. The next crucial part is your hands must be opposing each other in order for them to work together. Pete Cowan is a huge advocate of this. Now, what does he mean by this? Well, essentially, as I grip this club, I'm going to provide a gentle force with my lead hand, doesn't matter what grip type you are, my lead hand twisting inwards slightly, and my trail hand also twisting inwards slightly. So kind of like the butterfly effect you could see right there. So if I was to exaggerate this, both my hands would be twisting inwards. Now, this doesn't mean I need you to death grip it. You can see I can do this, and very gently I can have my hands together. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to have some real stability with our hands on the clubs. If you're somebody who loses connection at the top, if you're somebody who, as you come through, you see your hands separate, this is going to massively help you with that. Now, again, I see so many people at address look like this. One of the biggest things I see is I can see people's lead thumb. It is a telltale sign your hands are not opposing each other, therefore they are working independently of each other. Therefore, good luck trying to control that club face. So feel like your hands twist in slightly, both of them. You can see they're now opposing each other, which gives me the control. So now let's move on to the next phase, which is how do we control this club face in the backswing? The first thing is that there is a set sort of way that we need to understand what wrist set is. Because again, controlling the club face is all about controlling the wrists. Now, I see one of the biggest mistakes golfers make, and actually coaches get this wrong all the time, is they say wrist set is this motion. Wrist set is not this motion. It is not a straight upwards motion, because look at what's happening as I do this. My lead wrist is extending. Now, that's a technical term for saying it's cupping, which is also a technical term for basically if I turn to the top of the backswing, that club face is going to be way open for most golfers. Now, for most golfers, that's one of the worst positions you can be in, because you are then going to want to swing over the top, cut across it, shanks, tops, pulls, slices. Horrendous, not fun. So what is wrist set? Well, for a neutral sort of standard wrist set, think of a 45-degree angle. So it's at a 45-degree angle right here. Why? Really simple. The left wrist does set upwards. It does do that, but the trail wrist sets back on itself this way. It's by moving the trail wrist correctly, which goes this way. So it goes sort of at a 90-degree angle relative to the ball. Combine the two together, and that's how you get a flat left wrist with the club coming up and a great loading of the trail wrist. Lead wrist goes up, trail wrist goes back, piece the two together, there's our 45-degree angle. And that's what allows us to flatten that left wrist, which is crucial. So now as we do that, we can sort of go, okay, this is starting to piece it together a little bit more. So now we can go, right, as I start to set the club in the back of the trail wrist a little bit more, so loading it essentially this way, you can see it gets the club face pointing a little bit more down to the ground. It flattens my lead wrist out. And now really, once I've done that really subtle motion right there, now I can just turn to the top and maintain that same feeling where the lead wrist is flat, trail wrist is extended and is taking the weight of the club. And we can see what that looks like as I start to come down. You're going to see it's going to make it so much easier to get into a good position. So hands are opposing each other on the grip, swing to the top. How do we deliver that club face nice and square? Well, the first thing that we have to understand is everybody's release is going to be slightly different, but there's a couple of sort of basic ground rules that we need to get in place first. So the first ground rule is that it doesn't matter who you are, there is always going to be an element of your forearms releasing. Granted, golfers who release it from more of a toe up to toe up, aka a roll release, will have more forearm rotation as their squaring mechanism. Golfers who have the club face a little bit more down to the ground will have less forearm rotation, but there still is forearm rotation. That is how we get into that nice extended position all the way through contact. The second key is that we must all realign at the same point. Now, what is realignment? Realignment is where the lead arm and the club get back into one straight line. Now, it's kind of spooky in a weird way. When you look at the biomechanics, pretty much every golfer, no matter what club they're using, I'm talking, PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, they realign that lead arm and the club at the left ankle. So by knowing that, if you realign the left arm and the club right here, that means at the point of contact where we would have had to have had shaft lean, and that's going to also ensure that our low point is after the golf ball, giving us great contact. So again, it doesn't matter what kind of release you are, you're going to see some forearm rotation and you're going to see left arm realign at the left ankle. So if it's more of a body release like this one, you're going to see again, those things still apply, so my forearm's still rotated, I realigned at the left ankle. But if my club face is a little bit more open on the way down, again, some players are naturally going to be in that position. They're going to have a little bit more forearm rotation. Will Zalatoris, great example, but he's still going to have those same sort of checkpoints. And you can see there, a lot more forearm rotation. Again, I was able to control the club face with both of those really well. How do we start to actually learn how to manipulate things? Well, this is where things get interesting. So here's a great way of doing it. So if I bring the camera nice and close and in so you can see this a lot more, what we are going to start to do is A, learn how to de-loft the club and add loft, and B, how to then rotate with more face rotation, but also how to hold it off. First one, how do we start to get into a position to where we can de-loft it? Well, if I go here and I want to de-loft it, I'm going to feel like I push this handle sort of down and forwards whilst keeping that club face square. How do I do that? Well, you can see I have to flex my lead wrist more, and I have to have my trail wrist into what we class as more load or more extension back in this position. And you can see that is very much how we hit that punchy shot. So if I was hitting a punchy shot, these are the wrist conditions that I'm going to feel like I have in order to drive that ball into wind, keep it low, keep it out that St. Andrews Scottish blustery weather. Now, what if I needed to do the other situations where I'm trying to hit that ball higher? Well, in this situation, I'm going to have to release my angles out earlier to the point where you can see now my lead wrist has a lot more extension. So relative to the punch shot, relative to the standard, you can see how my lead wrist is sort of changing in terms of flex. It goes from flex to neutral to actually starting to extend slightly. And my right wrist is also releasing. So when we're talking about hitting different trajectories, yes, we can change our setup and stuff like that, but fundamentally, you can do it with your wrists. Release it earlier to hit it higher, hold it longer to hit it lower. Now, what if we're trying to hit more of a draw, or maybe you're more of a roll release golfer? Well, watch this. If I open the club face and I'm trying to get it back to square, you can see how, yes, I am working that lead wrist into flexion, but I am rolling my forearms over. And I really like doing it like this because I can get nice and close to the club face and I can ensure that I'm returning it back to square and through. What if I'm a golfer who's trying to hit a bit more of a fade or a body release? Then I'm going to be feeling, watch this, see here, it's going to stay a lot more passive on the way through. So there is going to be some release there, but it's going to be at a much slower rate than a golfer who is doing a roll release. So awesome exercise to do right there, just to enhance your feelings. So once you've done that, then take that exercise, that drill, and work through hitting some different shots. Now, as you hit these different shots, again, don't be too hard on yourself. This is not an easy exercise to do, and try and get very different trajectories and curvatures. So I'm going to hit towards the 75-yard sign. I got a 7-iron here, so I'm not going to hit full swings by any means. These are literally going to be sort of chippy ones. So the first shot I'm going to do is representing more of that lower power flight. So I'm going to get that lead wrist a little bit more flexed, trail wrist a little bit more extended. So again, if I was gripping it here, I would be feeling more of this. So this is pointing away from me, loft is down to the ground. If I do it here, I'm going to just try and chip one out nice and low. Hopefully you'll pick it up on the camera down the line. And you can see I actually thinned that a little bit, not necessarily the greatest of examples. So let me do one more there, but it definitely came out low, put it that way. But let's try it one more time. There you go, that was a better strike. And you can see it came out very flat, no curvature, and that is going to be your sort of punch shot. Now, without changing anything, I'm not going to change any of my setup things. I'm now going to hit it higher. How? Because I'm going to release my angles out earlier. I'm going to get a little bit more extension, so cupping to that lead wrist. So hopefully you'll be able to pick it up from the downline view. And you can see that's flown nearly twice the height. Again, very short swings to sort of amplify that up as I would increase my club head speed. But by simply going from this position to more of this position, I was able to nearly double the trajectory. Now, what if I want to start to really close down the face, hit a little bit more of a drawy shot, even in this sort of situation? Well, again, let's grip it up here. Let's figure it out. Right, how do we start to really close down the face? I got to be feeling not only my wrist sort of roll and bow, but my forearms start to roll and bow. Over here in the UK, we play rugby. It's like a spin pass, so I'm going to be feeling that sensation right there. If I do it now with the club face, I'm going to be really feeling like I can pass my right hand over my left, get that club face closing down. Again, that's going to help me hit a draw. If you need to hit a hook, just amplify it up even more. So let me have a go with it here. So hopefully you can see that. Oh, that was nice. That was about a 5-yard draw, even on the little punchy one. So there again, hopefully you got it from the downline view. You can see I manipulated my wrist. I didn't change my grip. I didn't change my setup. That was all done with my wrist and forearm manipulation. Now on this one, it's going to be a little bit more fadey. I am going to aim a little bit more to the left on this one, just to make it easier to get my path to the left. But my feeling on the way through now is going to be no forearm rotation. It's not the case, it's the feel for me, but I'm going to be feeling like I'm holding it off this way. So I'm not going to be turning it over, and you'll see that I'll be able to cut it back in very simply. So there you go, you can see there, that really, even on that shot, had quite a bit of movement to it. And all I really did there was manipulate my feelings in my hands of how I did it. If you need more one-to-one help with your game for online coaching on the Skillist platform, check that out down in the description as well. And if you have enjoyed today's video, please give it a like and subscribe, and I hope to see you back here soon.